Okay, so you guys have been sending in tons of best of lists and album reviews from 2024.
Like a whole stack of them.
Seriously, it looks like everyone's trying to build that perfect playlist, which I love.
Definitely got to have the right soundtrack for the new year, right?
Exactly. And we've got everything here from big music publications to individual user reviews, which is amazing because it gives us such a broad range of opinions to dive into.
So we're not just talking about what the critics think, but what actual listeners are vibing with.
Yeah, exactly. Get ready for some serious music exploration because we're going to uncover the gems, the debates, and maybe even some surprises in the music world from 2024.
It's always cool to see how these lists reflect not only the top albums, but also the trends and shifts happening in different genres.
Totally. Like, it's a snapshot of what really grabbed everyone's attention last year.
A musical time capsule.
Love that. Okay, so let's jump right in with a name that's on pretty much every list. Billie Eilish.
Of course.
Her album Hit Me Hard and Soft is getting tons of praise for her vocals and for those emotionally charged lyrics.
Yeah, she really goes there.
For sure, one reviewer even called it her best work yet and the second best pop album of the year.
Wow, that's high praise.
It is. But then there's this other comment about some of the songs being guilty pleasures.
That's interesting.
Right. What could that even mean when we're talking about Billie's music?
That's a good question. Knowing her style, it could be some tracks that are just pure pop fun, maybe even with a little bit of irony or playfulness mixed in.
Ooh, I like that, like she's winking at the listener.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
While still delivering those raw emotional moments she's known for, it's a tough balance to strike.
for sure.
Mhm.
Okay, speaking of artists who are always pushing the boundaries, we have to talk about Kendrick Lamar.
He's a legend.
Right. GNX is creating so much buzz with some people saying it's even better than his previous work.
It's definitely a strong contender.
Definitely, what is it about GNX that's making everyone call him the GOAT?
Well, Kennedy's always been incredible at weaving social commentary into his music while experimenting with these complex rhyme schemes and rhythms.
He's a master lyricist.
For sure. And with GNX, it feels like he's taken it to another level sonically and lyrically.
It's like he's redefining what hip hop can be.
One reviewer even said GNX might push Drake into early retirement. That's how big of a deal this album is.
Wow, that's a statement.
Mm.
Okay, another artist who's all over these best of lists is Charlie XCX.
She's a force to be reckoned with.
Right. Brat is getting a lot of love for the way it combines raw EDM production with vulnerable lyrics.
It's a really cool mix.
Yeah, and wait, did you see Anthony Fantano gave it a 10 out of 10?
Yeah, I saw that. That almost never happens.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So tell me what's got everyone so hyped about Brat.
Well, Charlie's taking risks here, combining those heavy electronic beats with lyrics that are super introspective and personal.
Like a window into her soul, but with a killer beat.
Exactly. And one reviewer even suggested she might dive even deeper into techno or electronica on her next album.
I can definitely see her going in that direction. She's always pushing the boundaries of pop.
Yeah, she's fearless.
Okay, and speaking of artists who have evolved over time, let's talk about Tyler, the Creator.
He's come a long way.
He has Chromacopia is being called a masterpiece by some, blending those catchy bangers with some surprisingly emotional depth.
He's definitely not afraid to show his softer side anymore.
Right. It's fascinating to see how his music has grown from those early days, which were,
A little more provocative, shall we say.
yes, very diplomatic. So, what are your thoughts on his artistic journey and how it's led him to Chromacopia?
Well, Tyler's always been someone who defies categorization, right? He started with those really provocative lyrics and visuals that definitely got people talking. But over time, he's brought in more vulnerability and introspection.
It's like he's peeling back the layers.
Exactly.
Oh.
And with Chromacopia, it feels like he's found a balance between artistic experimentation and accessibility.
Yeah.
So he's appealing to a wider audience without sacrificing his creative edge.
That's impressive. It's like he's mastered the art of being both mainstream and avant-garde at the same time.
He's walking that tightrope.
Totally. Okay, so now let's switch gears a little and talk about some albums that are getting strong reactions but maybe more divided opinions.
Where things get a little spicy.
Exactly. Linkin Park's comeback album From Zero is a great example.
The return of Linkin Park. It was bound to generate some buzz.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
It's pretty bold of them to blend all their past styles on one album.
It's a bit of a sonic roller coaster.
Yeah, some reviewers are loving it, calling it a natural progression and praising their willingness to take risks.
Which they've always done as a band.
Right. But then others are finding it a bit messy, unsure of what direction they're trying to go.
It can definitely be jarring when a band experiments with their sound.
Yeah, and then there's this whole other layer of intrigue with Emily seeming to have left the band and some speculation about her past ties to Scientology.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, one reviewer even pointed to some lyrics from her band Dead Sarah that seemed to criticize the organization.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and her coming out as queer as well, which could be another reason for her departure.
Hmm. Yeah, that definitely adds another layer of complexity to the whole thing.
Totally. It's like From Zero unintentionally became about more than just the music.
It's a reminder that music is often deeply intertwined with the artist's personal lives and experiences.
For sure. Okay, another album that's getting some mixed feedback is Sum 41's Heaven X Hell.
Oh, yeah. What's the verdict on that one?
Well, one reviewer really loved the Hell side, but thought the Heaven side was a bit all over the place, even comparing it to MGK or Simple Plan.
Ooh, okay, so why would that be a negative comparison in the context of Sum 41?
Well, MGK and Simple Plan, while successful in their own right, tend to have a more polished pop-punk sound.
Yeah, very radio friendly.
Exactly. So this comparison suggests that Sum 41, known for their raw energy and heavier influences, might be straying a bit too far from their roots on the Heaven side.
It's a classic dilemma for bands trying to evolve their sound,
Yeah.
appealing to a wider audience, but potentially alienating their core fan base.
Right. It's that age-old battle between artistic integrity and commercial success.
That's a tough line to walk.
It is. Okay, so we've talked about the big names and the somewhat controversial releases, but what about the hidden gems?
Ah, yes, the underdogs.
Yeah. The newcomers and contender sections of these lists are full of exciting discoveries waiting to be unearthed.
I love digging for those hidden musical treasures.
Me too. So let's start with a band that's being hailed as a possible rock revival. The Warning.
I've heard good things about them.
Their album, Keep Me Fed, is being called the best rock album in decades, which is a bold statement.
That's a huge claim. What's driving all this excitement around a Gen Z power trio? Is it just nostalgia or is there something more?
Well, one reviewer said they bring a fresh perspective to the genre while still honoring that raw energy and power of classic rock.
That's a cool combination.
Yeah, and they're a young, all-female band who can seriously shred, so that definitely adds to the appeal.
Definitely. It sounds like they're tapping into something that a lot of people are craving. Authenticity and excitement in the rock world.
Yeah, it's like they're breathing new life into a genre that's gone through so many ups and downs.
Rock and roll will never die.
I love that energy. Okay, speaking of bands that have stood the test of time, The Cure is back after 16 years with Songs of a Lost World.
Wow, that's a long wait.
It is. And one reviewer called it a triumphant comeback, potentially one of their best albums ever.
That's incredible. Can you talk a little about The Cure's legacy and why this album, after such a long break, is generating so much buzz?
Sure. The Cure has this unique sound, you know. It's a blend of melancholy introspection and ethereal beauty that's resonated with people for decades.
It's definitely a mood.
Yeah, and they've influenced so many bands, they really helped define the sound of alternative rock.
So for them to come back after 16 years and release an album that's being compared to classics like Disintegration and Pornography is huge.
Yeah, it's like they haven't aged a day, musically speaking.
I love that. But it's not just the big comebacks that are making waves in 2024.
Oh, there's always more.
Always. We've got some interesting tidbits about other artists that are worth mentioning, like Sabrina Carpenter's Short and Sweet.
What's the scoop on that one? Apparently it's got a mix of rap R&B and even some Dolly Parton tones.
Wow, that's a wild combination. I gotta hear that.
Me too. And speaking of defying expectations, Judas Priest is still rocking at age 72 with Invincible Shield, which some are saying could be one of their all-time best albums.
Wow. The metal gods are still going strong.
They are. What is it about Judas Priest that allows them to stay relevant and powerful after all these years?
They've been at the forefront of heavy metal for over 5 decades, right?
That's longer than I've been alive.
They've influenced countless bands with their sound and their stage presence, and Invincible Shield showcases their incredible musicianship. Rob Halford's vocals are still insane.
Like he hasn't aged a day.
Seriously. It's inspiring to see a band with that kind of history still pushing boundaries and making music that resonates with both longtime fans and new listeners.
It's amazing. They're proof that age is just a number when it comes to passion and creativity.
Agreed.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground already, from pop icons to metal legends and everything in between. But before we move on to even more musical discoveries, I gotta hear your thoughts.
Get me?
What stood out to you so far? Any artists or albums that have piqued your curiosity?
It's really cool to see a band like The Warning making such an impact.
Yeah, they're bringing back that raw energy that rock sometimes seems to be missing these days.
For sure. Speaking of energy, though, we can't forget about Taylor Swift.
Oh, she's definitely a force to be reckoned with.
Her new album, The Tortured Poets Department, is all over the place with reviews.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see the reactions. Some people are saying it's her best work yet, and others are like, not so much.
I think it's just one of those albums you either love it or hate it.
Maybe. But even the negative reviews seem to admit her songwriting is powerful.
Well, absolutely. She knows how to craft a song that gets in your head.
And her lyrics, they really hit home for a lot of people.
It's like she's speaking directly to their experiences.
Right. And speaking of lyrics, did you see the track list for the anthology version? 30 songs, including ones like Who's Afraid of Little Old Me, Fortnite, and even Fresh Out the Slammer.
Wow, those are some interesting titles.
I know, right? It makes me wonder what kind of themes she's exploring on this album.
Who's Afraid of Little Old Me sounds like a classic Taylor Swift power anthem.
Yeah, like she's taking back control of her narrative.
Exactly. And then you have Fresh Out the Slammer, which hints at a darker, maybe even a little rebellious side.
Ooh, I like that. And Fortnite, what do you think that's about?
Honestly, your guess is as good as mine. Maybe it's a commentary on fame or internet culture or something like that.
It's like she's giving us little clues and letting us put the pieces together.
It's all part of the Taylor Swift experience.
Totally. Okay, so before we go full Swiftie mode, let's circle back to Linkin Park for a sec.
Sounds good.
They released another album in 2024 called Paper Cuts on top of From Zero.
Really? 2 albums in 1 year, that's ambitious.
It is. What do you think about that strategy? Do you think they're experimenting with different sounds or maybe trying to appeal to different fans?
It could be a little of both. Maybe Paper Cuts has some more experimental tracks that didn't quite fit the vibe of From Zero.
Like a B-sides collection or something.
Yeah, exactly. Or it could be a way to give fans even more content, especially those who stream their music.
That makes sense. Okay, let's move on to a band that's known for pushing the boundaries of pop music. Everything. Everything.
They're definitely unique.
Their new album, Mountainhead, is getting great reviews, but their sound is notoriously hard to describe.
Yeah, they blend so many different genres.
It's like art rock meets electronica with a dash of experimental pop.
If I had to explain it to someone, I'd say imagine a musical kaleidoscope where rhythms and melodies clash and collide, but in a really cool way.
Ooh, I like that. So it's unpredictable, but still catchy.
Exactly. They're not afraid to experiment, but there's always a strong pop sensibility underneath it all.
So they're like the thinking person's pop band.
Something like that.
I love it. You know, it's awesome to see so many artists still going strong after decades in the industry, like Green Day, the Aquabats, Seether, even P.O.D. and Riot V all released albums in 2024.
It's true. There are a lot of familiar names on these lists.
What do you think that says about the state of the music industry?
I think it shows that music has this enduring power, both for the artists who make it and for the fans who connect with it.
It's a lifelong passion for a lot of people.
Exactly. These bands have been making music for years, and they're still pushing themselves creatively. They're still touring and connecting with their fans.
It's inspiring to see that kind of dedication.
It really is. And speaking of bands that have stood the test of time, we got to talk more about Judas Priest.
The metal gods themselves.
Their album Invincible Shield is being hailed as one of their best ever.
Yeah, and that's saying something considering their legendary discography.
What's so special about this one, though?
It's the intensity and power of their music, but also there's a surprising amount of vulnerability and introspection.
That's interesting.
Rob Halford's vocals are seriously amazing. He hasn't lost a bit of his range or power.
It's like they've found the fountain of youth, but for heavy metal.
I love that. Okay, so this deep dive has taken us on quite a journey through the sounds of 2024, from introspective pop to full-on metal and everything in between.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have. Are there any albums or artists that we haven't talked about yet that have caught your attention?
You know, I'm really curious about Ariana Grande's Eternal Sunshine. She's always been an incredible vocalist, but I'm interested to see how she's evolved on this album.
Ooh, good pick. And her music always has a certain vibe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm also intrigued by Porter Robinson's Smile. Diddy, I've always loved his blend of electronic soundscapes and emotional melodies.
Oh, yeah. His music is definitely unique. What about you? Any albums you're dying to check out? Well, Casey Musgrave's Deeper, well, it sounds really interesting. I love her songwriting. It's so honest and relatable.
She's got a way with words.
She does. And I'm also curious about Chelsea Wolfe. Her music is often described as haunting and atmospheric, which I'm always down for.
I could see. Okay, so before we lose ourselves in a sea of new music, let's take a step back for a moment.
Sounds good.
What are some of the bigger trends we're seeing in music based on these 2024 albums?
One thing that jumps out is the way artists are blending genres more and more.
It's like the lines are getting blurred.
Yeah, exactly. You've got pop stars incorporating rap and R&B, rock bands using electronic textures, even electronic artists bringing in acoustic instruments.
It's really cool to see artists breaking down those traditional barriers.
Totally. It shows how creative and innovative the music industry is right now.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into the music of 2024. And man, it's been an amazing journey.
Yeah, time flies when you're geeking out about music.
It really does. We've covered so much ground from those massive pop hits to some seriously intense metal.
And everything in between.
Right. But one thing that's really stood out to me is just how diverse and creative the music scene is right now.
Yeah, it's like artists are throwing out the rule book and experimenting with sound in ways we haven't seen before.
Totally. It's like a musical explosion.
We've seen artists like Billie Eilish and Kendrick Lamar, who are already huge, just keep evolving and pushing their own boundaries.
And then you have legends like The Cure and Judas Priest who are showing everyone that they're still at the top of their game, even after all these years.
Right. And of course, we can't forget those newcomers like The Warning,
Yeah.
who are bringing this fresh energy to the rock world.
They're killing it. And it makes you realize that music has this power to connect with people across generations and genres.
It's a universal language.
It really is.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to shift the focus back to you, the listener, because we've spent all this time talking about the music of 2024.
Right.
But now I'm curious, what connected with you the most? What albums or artists really spoke to you on a deeper level, and why?
Music is such a personal thing. You know, what resonates with one person might not do anything for someone else.
It's true, and that's what makes exploring music so interesting.
So take a minute and think about the music that really moved you this past year.
Yeah. What stories did it tell? What emotions did it bring up for you? And what does your playlist say about you as a person?
Because at the end of the day, music is this amazing form of self-expression.
It reflects who we are, what we've been through, and what we hope for.
It's like a soundtrack to our lives.
It really is. And the coolest thing is that soundtrack is always evolving. There's always something new to discover.
So keep listening, keep exploring, and keep the music playing.
That's the best advice. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the sounds of 2024. It's been a blast.
Until next time, we'll catch you later for another adventure in the world of music.